That's the 488 Spider complete. I'm going to show you around it now. I'm going to talk you through a couple of little boring bits and yeah, give you a little listen to that track. Wicked sounding. It's been hard work. You know, the trick is it's a JBL car, can't remove the amp. We'll get into the technicalities of it, so not too deeply, but just so you understand. The JBL amplifier digitally controls the volume of the system, so you may turn a knob on your dash, but that knob speaks to the amp. It doesn't speak to the source unit. The source unit, you would assume, would be the screen that you can see, plays a signal out to your amp amplifies it, off you go. In this and in a lot of modern cars, all of its gubbins are inside of its amplifier, so you have to leave the amp in place. Now, we can do an amount to control and try and linearize the output of an amplifier, a particularly dirty, messy amplifier like is in the 488. The JBL amp is all sort of mucky, so we've got all sorts of output signals from it that we've had to pinch. Those output signals are controlled by its own volume. As you turn the volume up, whenever the bass comes in, it just really limits the bass and winds it back, winds the volume back as it sees fit, just does what it wants. Now, you can't simply cut cables and be into a DSP like you can in a more basic car, you know, safely, of course. With this one, you're having to install load resistors, you're having to do all sorts of stuff to trick it. Now, the system we've got in here includes an Audison F8.9 bit, which has all of that load resistance and speaker sort of detection on board already, so we haven't needed to use any of those. But we have, like I've just said, had to go post amplifier and grab the signal that way. As far as I know, there isn't a fix for that. Because the moment that you remove the factory amplifier from the Ferrari unit, you lose control of volume, you lose control of the selection of certain things, which is a compromise that we just can't have. So what do we do to get around it? We do our best to control the sound out of that amplifier into our own, and then we control it again after the fact, so it gets far better. Yeah, far better than it originally was, a much more sort of linear sound, but still we have those drawbacks where if you try and lean on it, try and get some volume on it, it'll roll your bass off. There's nothing you can do about that. You can't add in things that aren't there or add in things as they're being removed live time. A lot of marketing hyperbole would tell you that you can, you just can't. It doesn't work in a real world scenario. So we do our best to get the OEM system sounding as good as we can. This one probably sounds 5 to 10 times better than it did when it came in, but our sort of cherry on top is to add something high resolution afterwards. So because we have multiple inputs to our amplifier, we can pop in a digital signal, one that isn't screwed around with, one that's completely linear, and it can show the potential of the actual system that's been installed without having to deal with any of Ferrari's or actually it's not JBL's trickery and nonsense. So that's what we've done. So we fitted a secondary source, what we call an indulgent source, as I've covered many times in our videos, where he can just connect to that via USB. This plays into the F8.9 bit digital input, which then feeds out to Audison Thesis sax, mid-bass, Audison Thesis violino, tweeters, an Audison APF1D, the new Forza monoblock, and an AP10. Now the AP10 might seem like it's out of its depth with all the rest of that kit. The AP10 can bang, okay? It's a relatively cheap, inexpensive subwoofer, but in the right enclosure, in the right space, it really does knock. So I would try it if you're in that price bracket and you want a good sub. So from 0.6 to 1 cubic foot, I think it's great. You've got, there's loads of scope between there. So yeah, volume, clarity, depth of bass, imaging, mid bass, it's all there. We've got the lot from that. that DAC input, from the digital input. From the factory input, we've got a huge improvement over stock. So that's 2 boxes ticked. I suppose what I'm saying is the expectation has to be lower when listening to the OEM system, because there's some things you can't control. You can do your best to control them, but sometimes that can often lead it to being more of a mess, you know, than an improvement. And what we don't want to do is spend money to make a sidestep. It may sound different, but does it sound better? In this case, it sounds tons better. So there's not much to see, because the brief is that nothing is seen. We don't want anything in there to be detectable other than the DRC, which we need to control volume and source selection on the digital input. We can use our phone, but of course we don't want to be touching the phone while we're driving, especially such a technical drive as this. We don't want to be controlling the system from our phone. So yeah, or you can use your watch like James Bond. Let's have a little listen. I'm gonna wind this back, press play, turn it up. Let's go and have a walk around, and then we'll show you, or I'll show you the system, as much of it as we can see, and I'll chuck up some pictures and whatnot. So that's that paused now. Let's take this seat forward. This panel that you can see here is, is made by ourselves. It's a custom panel. Behind there is a ledge that's about 4 inches deep and then about 2 inches deep at the top. So there's a wedge box in there, and then there's a grill section that's trimmed over to be completely flush. The subwoofer box is there. The F1D is in the middle. The AP 8.9 bit is on the far side, so on the driver's side. Coming forward, we've got active cabling, which comes up the center, through to the speakers, through to the doors, stuff like that. Underneath that little bridge there, the gear selection gubbins, you can just see the DRC just hiding underneath there. That's by your left knee while you're driving. So really nice sort of position to control the volume when you're playing with your phone. So that's it. Ferrari owners, your cars can sound good. I've not sat in a Ferrari or heard a Ferrari that sounds good. The engine sounds fantastic. I don't want to hear, you don't need a stereo. Yeah, you do. Alright, when you're screaming along through a European road trip, the last thing you want is a monotonous drone at 6K the whole way there. Play some music, enjoy yourself, relax. Alright. What a lovely, brilliant car, brilliant system. The whole thing works together as just a real nice package. So yeah, all of our details are down below in the description. We've done other videos as well with relatively similar systems. Cost on the system around £8,000. So we've got a £2,000 front end component set. You can change that if you want to, you know, if you don't want to spend that amount of money. The F8.9 bit, the F1D, the AP10, all of the installation. The dashboard has to come out, which, you know, okay, it's scary, but with the right mindset and the right guys on the job, it comes out and goes in perfectly. Feel free to rewind the video, have a look. Everything's in there, spot on. Yeah, there's a lot of labour goes into working on Ferraris. It's not Ferrari tax. It's just the fact that they are so much more difficult to work on than most other cars. It just takes a long time, you know. So yeah, you can scale that system right down. You can scale it further. You know, you just have to sacrifice a little more space or a little less space, and of course the cost. So yeah, think about it. The JBL system in these, I think, is a £5,000 or £6,000 upgrade, and at the risk of being sued by them, it's disgraceful. It's an awful sounding system. Anyone with one of these, other than your Ferrari hat brigade telling you should be listening to the engine, knows that these systems just suck. So yeah, there's your upgrade path. All right, like I said, it can be from top to bottom. You can kind of pick and choose. This one's a relatively high level one, and it sounds great to boot. All right, I'm Carl. This is Studio Incar, and this is a Ferrari 488 Spider with one of our signature upgrades after the JBL system. Tricky to integrate, but we've done it, and there it sits. All right, take it easy, guys. Have a nice weekend.